Good morning to the sunrise safari here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, and look at the sky. Isn't it just wonderful? As the old saying goes, red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning, red sky at night, shepherd's delight. We didn't have a red sky last night, but we have got a red sky this morning. And if the saying is true, we can expect some more rain today, which is exactly what we need and exactly what we're all putting our hands together for. As you can see, there's some towering clouds there on the horizon close to the sunrise. They are building up over the Indian Ocean, and they have a small little mountain range to cross. They have to get across the Lobombos before they get to us, which may cause them to dump a little bit of their rain, but I'm hoping that they come back. We've got this bank of clouds surrounding us in the east and the south, and that is exactly where we get our rain from, is the east and the south, and that's basically where I'm hoping they come from. Tebs is with me on camera today. We've got Kirsty and Jerry in final control, and Jamie and Brian on the other vehicle, and it's a lovely, lovely morning. It's about I'm Stefan Winterboer, and over my shoulder we've got the biggest promise so far that I'm seeing coming over, round about over there. You can see popping their fluffy white heads over the top of the trees. That is exactly what I'm hoping to see grow as the safari evolves this morning, and we'll be keeping our eye on those cloud heads with much delight throughout the morning. Now, obviously, with so many layers of different moisture growing in the atmosphere, you actually have the ability to hear a lot more of what's going in the bush than what you generally would have, and that's because you get these temperature inversion layers. You get layers with different moisture contents, and animals have learned how to utilize this to their own benefit, and will quite often roar or call into the atmosphere and use this early morning stillness to bounce sound around. Now, they're not doing it consciously, of course. They're just doing it because it has more effect this time of the day. And I'm hoping that from our high vantage point that we have over here, we hear something of note. What I've decided to do this morning, and what Tebs and I have been doing since we left camp about 20 minutes ago this morning, is that I have been following the tracks backwards of that herd of buffalo that I was with yesterday, in the hope that something big and tawny that likes to eat buffalo is following them. It's very common for lion prides to follow buffalo. And from where those buffalo came into our property, all the way to where they left the property, is the stomping ground of the Nkahuma pride, which last night was in Buffelshoek, or yesterday was in Buffelshoek, yesterday morning in actual fact. They weren't found yesterday night, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't be anywhere at any time. These lions, they do tend to walk quite a few kilometers at night time. And what I am seeing as we are getting a little bit brighter is that in a tree off to the distance over there is the silhouette of a largish bird of prey. And while I've been looking at it, it does look like it could be an eagle of some sort. Yes. Well done, Mr. Tibbs. That is either a tawny eagle or a steppe eagle. One of the two. And the reason why I'm making that statement is that it's a brown eagle that's fairly large with a yellow beak. And now what I'm not able to determine at this particular distance is whether or not the gape, whether the mouth stops in the middle of the eye or at the back of the eye. We're a little bit too far away for that. It looks like it stops at the back of the eye. For those of you who are able to get even closer to your high-resolution computer screens than I am able to use my binoculars, you're welcome to give me a hand. What we're looking at is the mouth. Does it extend to the middle of the eye or past the eye? me, it looks like it is extending just past the eye, which would make this a steppe eagle, S-T-E-P-P-E. And these eagles travel the most immense distances to come down here. They are summer migrants, by which I mean they come here just in the summer months, just for a few months, usually just all the way down here to come and eat the termite feast that we have on offer here at Djuma. And they travel all the way from Asia, from China, Mongolia, the steppes of Russia. Can you believe it? They come all the way down here. That is easily a journey of 10,000 miles or more. And they fly all the way down here, arriving just before Christmas to come and eat predominantly termites. Termites is something that we have a lot of, and also we have a very good climate in summer. Unlike the equatorial regions of the world, our summers are not dominated by massive amounts of rain, and these birds would come down here to escape the bitter cold of the northern hemisphere continental winters. I'm sure some of you are enjoying the cold air that is associated with your winters, even this morning. Right now I'm sitting in shorts and a t-shirt, or a button-up shirt, but with no sleeves, enjoying a temperature of around about 70 or 80 degrees Fahrenheit, around about 20 degrees centigrade. The air is very humid. It's not quite as thick as what I'm used to at this time of the year, and by thick I mean the air can sometimes be so full of moisture you almost feel like you can spoon it in. Tibbs, would you mind just stopping on that thundercloud that you've got there in the distance? That cloud has started to plateau. It's got the typical anvil shape of a cumulonimbus cloud at the moment. You can see it trailing off to the north, just slightly next to the sunrise. And let's see, the top of the cloud is actually broken through whatever layers causing it to spread out like that. And for this time of the day to see an enormous cumulonimbus cloud like that is just, I quite enjoy watching that. It's going to be interesting to see if we can start seeing some lightning flashes. It's the only cumulonimbus cloud that I can see, and unfortunately the clouds off to our right hand side, those fluffy clouds I wanted to keep an eye on, they're going in the opposite direction. Let me see if I can see. I can show you there. You can have a look at the silver lining on some of these clouds as the sun starts to poke up. Still a red sky, so still good chance of rain today, but we're not going to speak too much about the rain. I don't want to jinx it the same as yesterday. But I'm sure Jamie would like to greet you this morning. And without further ado, we're going to send you over to her.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sunrise Safari. I thought that for this morning I might pay a visit to the hyena den, since I haven't been here for a day or two. I always find I start to miss them after a while, and I'm particularly enjoying this den site and its position. Oop, got knocked over there for a second. What is it about November and climbing trees? He really enjoys it. I think it's a way of being bigger than everyone else when you're one of the smallest things out here. It looks like Mom. Oops. Oh dear. Took a bit of a tumble into the den there. Wonderful thing about this den is it comes with hyenas of all ages, from the youngest at about a month old to November, who's 2 months, just over 2 months now, and then a couple of sub-adults ranging from about 7 to 8 months old to about 12 months old. Oh, got a little bit too brave for your own good there, November. And the fun thing is that the sub-adults are teaching the cubs to be curious and investigate their world a little bit further, because the cubs, when accompanied by a sub-adult, seem to be much braver. There's a lot of play action happening. It's highly entertaining. A little bit earlier, just before the start of the show, one of the sub-adults came to sniff my bumper, and I was watching carefully. It was June, I think. Watching really carefully. Oh, there's one of the youngest twins. Speed wobble. I was watching that little hyena very carefully as it came to sniff the vehicle, just to make sure it didn't start to chew on anything. And it lifted its head up fast and clocked its head or its nose on the bumper and gave me such a horrified expression, like I'd done it. It was very entertaining. Both of them made an appearance. You've heard me mentioning that it's November, and I've spoken before about Pretty and Corky. And Georgie, you were wondering how you name them. June is called June because he was born in June. Last year, actually, obviously. And then November, the little cub that's on the left with the spots starting to come through, that's because he was born in November. And then the twins apparently are D1 and D2, because they were born in December, and there's two of them. And then November's mother, Pretty, is because she's actually pretty. Corky is Corky because when we first found her, when she first moved to the communal den site, she kept sitting in the entrance to the dens and blocking the way for the cubs to come out. So she became Corky. Well, they're sort of named after their personalities to an extent, or at least the more recent ones who've entered into our character scene. Now, the reason that I'm supportive of naming them, and I find it particularly difficult, I've never named hyena cubs, and I've worked in research before, I've never named hyena cubs until they reach about a year old. But for our purposes, when we spend hours sitting at these dens, first of all, we start to get to know their personalities, but also it becomes incredibly confusing to talk about that cub that was born last year, November, and that cub that was born in December, and the cub before that was born in June. And remember that cub we saw once upon a time. It gets very, very confusing. So the names have started and now stuck, just as a way of helping us keep track of the different personalities. And it would be a lot more difficult to say, well, let's say we numbered them. So we would have C1 and C2 and C3 for the cubs, and F1 for Pretty and F2 for Corky. It doesn't have quite the same level of a good way of remembering it. Our little cub enjoys climbing trees a great deal, apparently. And Alice, you were wondering whether I think that November might be related to James, who is one of our presenters, for anyone joining us for the first time. Alice, obviously Alice is making that connection because James also loves to climb trees. I'm not sure how James would feel about that. He, I suppose, a well-deserved reputation for both of them. You never know. Maybe James has got some distant spotted hyena somewhere in his background. Maybe the family secret, but I think James is fairly one of a kind. There's certainly a cheekiness to both of them. We've mentioned before with Pretty, the mother of November, the tree-climbing James relative, we mentioned that we think that she might be a first-time mother. I'm going to roll forward ever so slightly since most of the action has moved to that part of the den. It's a tricky den site, this one. It comes with holes everywhere. prefer to give them plenty of space. But yes, we suspect it might be her first litter. Of course, we don't know that for certain. She just looks fairly young in comparison to Corky, for example. And Kathy, who's watching in Tennessee, you would like to know... Sorry, she was calling. Murphy's Law, she immediately stopped. The entertaining thing, sorry Kathy, I'll get to you in a moment. The entertaining thing about spotted hyenas is that I see them call down the den, or I see particularly Corky. She'll have both cubs out next to her and she'll start calling down into the den, or they'll be out on the other side of the den. And she'll be calling into the den like she's forgotten where exactly they sit, where exactly they are. So, Kathy, you want to know when hyenas first reproduce. And it's usually at around 2 for the females, possibly slightly older. And it's very common for first-time mothers to actually lose at least one of their cubs, if not 2, which means that we don't always know when there's a possibility that they've lost a cub before. What I want to do is just check when the first recorded breeding male was, because the males are slightly different. Oh, excuse me, that took me seriously by surprise. So the males spend quite a bit of time once they've left their den sites and once they've left their clans, being accepted into another clan, or if they decide to remain nomadic, actually trying to seduce the females. I'm just trying to double check the age for you, Kathy. I'll have a look for you when I'm not live, Kathy, just so I can keep an eye on what's happening at the den. I would say that the males are will be ready to breed at around 2 years old as well. The question is whether or not they actually have the opportunity to. It's a similar situation with wild dogs. With wild dogs, sometimes it takes them a while, although they are sexually mature at about 1.5 to 2 years old. Unless they have that opportunity to breed, it doesn't happen. Going backwards again. Let's follow the cubs. And they certainly keep their mothers busy at this age. What we'll see as both November and D1 and D2 start to get older, we'll see less and less of Pretty and Corky spending as much time around the den site as they do. It's interesting. Behind that tree, that was Pretty, I think, with one of Corky's cubs, and she was actually showing, it looked like she was showing submission to that little cub. I'm not sure whether that's, I'm offering that as an explanation because that's just what I expect to see, or if that's what actually happened. It's difficult because it was behind the tree trunk. There she goes again. Some really interesting interaction. So that's not this cub's mother for new viewers, but this cub is very curious about her. And we suspect that Pretty is actually quite low ranking, which is why I think she's letting that tiny cub come up to her and greet her in an adult way and sniff around her genitals. Woodpecker. And we think that she might be naturally quite submissive and quite low down in the clan's hierarchy. And that means that for Corky's cub, the smallest cub, having inherited mom status, it's actually higher ranking than this female in theory. With cubs, it's a little bit more complicated because they don't necessarily straight away know their place in the hierarchy. And they sometimes push the boundaries, and of course they get to play with each other regardless of whatever rank the individual holds. There she goes again. Amazing to watch them interacting with cubs and how gentle they can be. Those incredible bone-crushing predator jaws are wielded around the cubs' heads and necks with absolute gentle precision. Just an interesting aside about what's happening with this clan. Yesterday we heard zebras alarm calling around quarantine. Now, zebra alarm call for not much, actually. They'll alarm call for lions. Even leopards, they're unlikely to be too stressed about. And we suspect, because afterwards I drove up onto quarantine on my way home, and it was filled with hyena. And we suspect that this clan is now targeting zebra foals and hunting zebra foals, and it remains to be seen if we are correct about that. But let's wait and see. I think that is the case. I think they are hunting at the moment. There's been little opportunity for scavenging within the clan's territorial boundaries, unless the lions move further west into Buffelshoek. Because the lion prides have been spending time quite far away from the centre of Djuma and have been on the surrounding properties, which means they haven't had much in the way of opportunity for scavenging those kills. Interestingly, just watching the behaviour also with one of these twins, I can't tell if it's D1 or D2 just yet, but it's definitely bolder than the other. And I don't know whether that means necessarily that it's a female, but there is one that we see outside of the den far more frequently and playing with November more frequently. I'm going to keep watching. I'll let you know which one it is. Might be that we've got a male-female dynamic. November baiting mom there. And Zoe, you're wondering how often a female can have a litter of cubs. The answer is about once a year, roughly. The average is probably a little bit longer than 12 months. It's probably somewhere about a year and a half. And the reason behind that is spotted hyenas have quite an extended lactation period. Oh. So they definitely they have that extended lactation period, and they spend far more time with the parental care that they utilize. I'm going to reposition, and in the meantime, Steph has got a beautiful view of this rising sun.
Look at that sky. I know you've been treated to the little hyenas that are playing around the den, but we just needed to share the sunrise with you. We've just seen the sun poking its head out there in the center of your screen. And that line of fluffy clouds that you can see has just grown bigger as moisture from the Indian Ocean is hitting the Lebombo mountain range and is pushing up. It's creating these fluffy clouds over the low veld, and you've got that impossibly yellow sky coming through with those streaks of cloud, those silvery clouds that you can see. That anvil-shaped cumulonimbus cloud that we were having a look at a little bit earlier is still there in almost exactly the same place, which makes me think that it's growing over the ocean, over the Indian Ocean. Hasn't drifted not even a centimeter, which is quite bizarre. Generally speaking, these storm clouds do move. There's the sun. Good morning. the life giver of this planet and the closest star to where we are. Huge burning ball of, generally speaking, hydrogen and helium gas with a bunch of heavy elements in its core, burning at about 5,000 degrees centigrade on its surface and 50 million degrees centigrade in the core of itself. For those of you with stopwatches, push start now. Take a screenshot of where the sun is right now, and 8 minutes from now, take another screenshot. We will stay here for 8 minutes. I think it's worth looking at it. Now, why I'm telling you to do that is the fact that the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to reach us. 8 light minutes is how far we are from the sun, and light travels at, I'm not even, off the top of my head, I actually can't remember what the speed of light is. I remember what the speed of sound is, but not the speed of light. I just know that it's very fast. And you'll see that where the sun actually is in 8 minutes time compared to where we saw it poke its head out from behind that cloud is vastly different. It just gives you an appreciation for how big space is. Talking about space, we have got the most unbelievable cloud patterns above us. It's a whole bunch of different layers of clouds. We've got soft, fluffy clouds by the sun. We've got an enormous cumulonimbus cloud off to the left-hand side of your screen. We've got these scudding low-level clouds, the grey ones, the dark grey ones, and then right above us, right high in the atmosphere, coming out of the top of your screen now, we've got these silvery, wispy, almost tortoiseshell clouds that you can see there against the blue sky. And just have a look at that. That in its own is just one of the most spectacular sights. And so often we don't take time to appreciate how gorgeous a display a sunrise can be. Myself and Tebs have been debating on how far those clouds actually are. For those of you maths boffins out there, perhaps you could help jog my mathematical mind. At sea level, humans can see 25 kilometers before the curvature of the earth causes us to start looking into the sky. I'm almost of the opinion that those clouds are humping over the Lebombo mountain range, which is from here 80 kilometers away, probably around about 65, 70 miles, and that the huge cumulonimbus cloud that was off to the left-hand side of the sun is over the Mozambique Channel, which will be about 200 kilometers away. That cloud is around about 12 to 15,000 feet into the sky, and I'm sure I seem to remember being able to figure out distance at some point in my academic career. I'm sure we'll be able to give those estimates of distance a nod of approval or not. Now we're about 4 minutes in, and you can see that the sun is in 4 minutes time. We'll show you where the sun is. In the meantime, we're going to send you back through to Jamie.
Timed that perfectly because a newcomer just arrived. A very large newcomer with a very round belly. And I have no idea who this is. I'm trying to figure it out. She's gone straight to the entrance of the den. Just trying to figure this one out. I thought maybe it might have been June's mother, so the big female with the scar across her back. But I can't see any scar, or any big scar. Corky's at the back with her cubs. No, it's not Corky at the back. That's what's going on. That must have been Corky that arrived. What is it? It's a bit tricky. I can't actually tell. And I definitely can't move. This is a big girl, whoever she is. Look at the submission the cubs are showing. And she's greeted all of them. November having a good sniff. And falling over himself, November that is, to show submission. There's a hint of fear in their approaches to this big female. Please send through screenshots if we manage to get some nice ones of this particular female. I want to just try and work out who she is. I have to confess, I can't identify all of the hyenas on the spec without closer examination, unless they have something clear like the scar around Corky's head, for example, and her ripped ear. But that's been some very interesting interaction. And while we try to figure out what's happening here, let's pop over to Steph, and he's got some more of that beautiful sunrise to show you.
Have a look at that sun. Now, as we're watching the sun get higher and higher in the sky, we're noticing that the clouds above us are actually burning off. We've still got the clouds on the horizon. We've still got them humping over the Lubombo mountain range. There's still that anvil-shaped, flat-topped cumulonimbus cloud off to the left-hand side of the sun. But for those of you who did take a screenshot of the sky, we're about 8 minutes away from where we said that. Have a look at that sun. That was where, when we first saw the sun, when it was just peeking above the clouds, that is actually the position of where the sun was. To give you an idea of relative distance. It's always been a fascinating topic for me, and something that I keep on doing every opportunity that I can. I don't quite know why I do it, to be quite honest. I'm trying to work through the feeling that I have now to try and explain it to you. But I think it's just my fascination with space and with the broader picture and the place that we live in. And on a day like today, it just brings it all into focus. Now, there are some clouds off to the right-hand side. They just seem to be scudding off into areas where we aren't at the moment. We've got this like hole of blue sky around us. Behind us, it's fairly open. In front of us, where you're looking at the moment, you've got these wispy clouds going off into a darker patch of clouds there. You can see it just entering your screen from the right-hand side now. And that is almost like a pervading sort of layer. And when we get over the hill, we'll start the calm. We'll get over the hill and we'll see what it's looking like on that side. It's almost time for us to move on. There's been an emergence of termites while we've been sitting here. They sort of arrived at dawn, flew around a little bit, created quite a stir with the birds around us, and then have moved off again. I don't see any more termites coming out. The ground is still very damp after yesterday afternoon's thunder shower. I think the clouds that were prevalent yesterday afternoon stopped the sun from drying it out and gave the water the whole evening to soak into the ground, which is probably fantastic for the grass. I'm looking forward to see the grass flush out green. And on that note, I think it would be a good time for us to get going and for you to go back to Jamie and your hyena.
Just move back a fraction to try and see what's happening up at that entrance tunnel to the den. That big female that came in, she's still there. She's the one on the right that's hidden through the tree there. And I'm just trying to work out what role she plays in all of this. I've not seen June's mother, the big hyena with the scar, the huge scar on her back, for a really long time. And that's fairly normal because the cub June that I'm referring to is close to 8 months old now. So is relatively, I wouldn't say self-sufficient, but definitely doesn't need her mother around as often as Corky and Pretty need to be around their small cubs. So the suckling intervals are much, much longer and much more infrequent. I wonder that this individual definitely carries a high rank. Look at that strut. Accompanied by Mischief personified, going off with her. Interesting. No, I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Now, we've heard considerable vocalization from this hyena clan. And obviously they've got their wonderful whooping call, they've got their contact calls. And the only other species of hyena that we have out here is a brown hyena. Although the chances of seeing them are fairly slim. They are incredibly shy and apparently have only been seen on live safaris once. But Marianne, you were wondering if there's a different tone or if there's a difference in the tones of the calls. Thank you, that was well timed. That's the female that we were watching earlier. Okay. You can see the reaction of the cubs to that. That's June calling. A very high-pitched whooping call. Yep, no reaction anymore from Corky and the twins. So Marianne, brown hyena and spotted hyena sound completely different. Brown hyenas don't do that whooping call, that whooping contact call. They have a very, very strange call. It sounds almost like people chattering or having a party far away. That sort of indistinct muttering sound. Hello. You're running on your way to approach whoever was calling and investigate. Sure. Den chaos. And they don't have the same variety of calls. They don't giggle around kills or chatter the same way that spotted hyena do when they get excited. They actually sound very, very different. And what I've noticed is they're almost completely silent in areas where there's high spotted hyena concentration. So the chances of us hearing a brown hyena out here is fairly slim. It's unlikely. They tend to stay very silent. Also the fact, of course, that we don't find that many of them in this particular part of the Sabi Sands. The habitat is not ideally suited for them. But yes, Marianne, totally different call. One I've been fortunate enough to hear only because I've been in a reserve where brown hyena were, it was a closed system, and they were the apex predator. There were no spotted hyenas and no lions. There were leopards, but obviously hyenas fall higher up the food chain than leopards do. And so the brown hyena in those areas were far more vocal. We had a lovely time at the den. I'm going to head on my way, and in the meantime, Steph has a bird to show you.
All right, we've got a group or a flock of well, there's a magpie shrike for you, but coming down to the ground now is a bird I've been wanting to show you since yesterday. It's a wattled starling flock, and there you have some of the ladies with a male in the background, you can see with a bright yellow head and his wattle underneath his chin. Our starlings are a most amazing group of birds. Their coloring is just fantastic. And they're busy picking off insects on the ground here. Quite difficult to see there, but there you can see that male wattled starling coming out there. Of course, he's going to run across the open. And we're going to see if we can just move forward a little bit to see if we can get him in one of these gaps. For you. Let's see if we can do that. Turn around quickly. The wattles only really come out this time of the year. You only really see them there. You go. Tevz is on it. All of the birds that we can see there are the wattled starlings. It's a flock numbering about 8 or 10 individuals, and this male looks like he's got himself a nice harem of females. There you go. Look at that. Those wattles will greatly diminish outside of the breeding season, and you don't actually see the wattled starlings at all in wintertime over here. You only see the males. They've got the most unbelievably high-pitched call as well. It's something completely atypical. I actually didn't even know the call that they made until just a few days ago, where a call alerted me to a call I didn't know alerted me to have a look at the top of the tree, and here was a male busy singing away for some females. He only had 1 or 2 females. They don't breed here. That is what my book is saying at the moment. They are generally nomadic. Wow. There you go. So they don't breed here. They're generally nomadic, and they are gregarious, which means that they like to hang around with each other in large flocks, and occur widely over southern Africa. One of the more spectacularly colored birds that we find out here in the Lowveld, and something that I quite enjoy looking at. Always busy doing something are birds. Very few birds just sit and do nothing, which makes them quite exciting to have a look at. Alrighty, let's carry on. Carry on driving into these clouds. One that I also enjoy having a look at. Eric, you asking this question all the way from Virginia Beach, and good morning to you. If I asked, what sign do we look for when animals or animals are trying to tell you something about weather change? Now, it's quite interesting you say that, because quite often in the flood, when it was about to flood in the year 2000, when I was involved in part of the floods that inundated this area, the hippopotamus and the crocodiles moved out of the river systems into dams and pans. And you also found weavers' nests building their weavers building their nests very high up in trees above dams and pans. That was one sign that I found quite interesting. Now that I'm part of a very big drought, and I'm busy observing with a critical eye what the bush is trying to tell us, I've noticed that the cuckoos are not prevalent anymore. We don't see any cuckoos, and that the weavers have stopped building their nests. So they're not building their nests at all. So that gives you an idea between the two. Normal height during normal years, higher in the trees during wet years, non-existent during dry years. That's something telling us about it. And then there's obviously on a more, that's now from a season to season occurrence. On a daily occurrence, I have noticed that the Burchell's cuckoo and the Jacobin cuckoo quite often call as the pressure is dropping, and they call to predict rain. And I'd say with probably a 60 to 70% accuracy, 60 to 70% is the accuracy that I can get with the Burchell's cuckoo. I'm almost sure this is one of the cinnamon birds that we are trying to find. Yes, cinnamon-breasted bunting, a female cinnamon-breasted bunting. Yesterday, myself and Brian tried as hard as we could to try and get one for you. It was near impossible. And there we have it. And I'm sure it was an 8-year-old viewer that was with James the other day. I battle to remember her name right now. But was trying so hard with James to get one. And I hope that she's watching at the moment. And Gracie, who's 8 years old, called them the cinnamon bun birds, and was dying to see one the other day. And now we've got one. Gracie, I hope you're watching right now. I hope one of your friends can take a screenshot for you. But that was the cinnamon-breasted bunting. And I know it's a bunting because of that zebra-striped head that it had, and that's what caught my eye. Good. Onward, so they say. Just let me know all the way from Final Control that lots of you have been sending in your pictures from the sunrise this morning, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone else who didn't manage to see those pictures. So thank you very much for sending in those screenshots. It's always nice to have screenshots shared around for those who join Wild Earth intermittently through the show due to whatever other responsibilities you have. And also for those who can't join us today. Cry in the background, that mournful whistle, was the black-crowned chagra. Oh, have a look at what we're seeing now as we crest the hill. So whereas above us was open sky, and I was worried that the clouds were starting to burn off. As I crested the hill and my vista further south opens, I can see that we are treated to a bank of clouds, which is awesome because that's exactly what I'm wanting to see. Now those banks of clouds, let's see if we can get you a nice view over there. Those banks of clouds are pressing up against the escarpment, the Drakensberg, which is the other side of the Lowveld. We've got two buttresses, the Lebombos on the east and the Drakensberg on the west. And so what's happened is moisture-rich air from the Mozambique Channel is being forced over the Lebombos finally, and is bumping up against the Drakensberg and creating this band of clouds, and I'm hoping that that carries on because that gives us some nice rain. I'm saying the R word again, slowly but surely jinxing today. This is not what I want. But that was nice to see. Very nice. Nice surprise to see. I was expecting it to burn off as it so often does. Alright, so what I've been doing question coming in from Madden, who's 9, and Quinn, who's only 7 years old. How do you become a game ranger is what they're wanting to know. It's relatively easy, to be quite honest with you. You go to a game ranging school, you can do that. There's a few academies around the country. Or you join one of the safari companies that offer a in-house training program. and then you go through the training, and then they basically decide whether or not people want to employ you. But it really is only a little bit of what you know, and generally mostly about the type of person you are. You've got to really want to be around people and to entertain people.
Something major's happening with these hyena here. They're having a bit of a skirmish, which is why we rushed across here. This might be difficult for some of you to watch, so sensitive viewers, I think possibly turn away. This one hyena's being quite seriously attacked by the other two. Definitely for sensitive viewers. I don't think you should watch this. Something's happened here within the clan. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's gone on here. This one individual's become the target for the clan's ire. There's a couple of sub-adults around. And again, very similar to what you saw with Scott. They targeted the ears of this hyena. And contact calls happening. This hyena is desperate to try and get away from them, but really struggling. I can't tell if it's a male or a female. This is the dark side of hyena nature. Now we've got to be careful that we don't impact in any way on this interaction. I'll turn the vehicle on, obviously. Moments like this are incredibly difficult to witness, and I don't have an explanation at the moment as to why they targeted this individual. It might have been Alright, it's trying to climb under our vehicle for safety. I'm going to move forward, and the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want... It's difficult. It's trying to seek refuge underneath our back tire, and it's learnt that this is the way forward, and it's that big female. That's targeting it. We have to move forward for the vehicle's safety as well as Brian's. I don't want any hyena jaws reaching up by mistake. As difficult as this is, and as much as we'd like to be a refuge for this hyena, trying to pass the rest of the clan. It's Not that I don't want to act as a refuge for this hyena, but it's a very difficult position to be in. I think this individual could well be an interloper in this situation. And I moved the car because I could actually feel them rocking it as they hit it. And those whooping calls, I think, have almost served to pacify. Guys, I'm going to turn around quickly. Very difficult situation to watch and observe. But a part of hyena nature that we don't get to see all that often. That is the main aggressor, the hyena on the left. And they've, I think actually by starting our vehicle, we may have broken the tension that was happening there. But hyenas, you can see how the sub-adults, which is also interesting, the sub-adults are always, from that sighting we had with Scott as well, they are involved in these skirmishes. Shame, little one. Let's have a look at you. I'm going to show you the injured hyena. You'll be okay. Its injuries are superficial. The attack group moving off. Shame. What happened? You did something to upset them. I don't know what it was. This hyena's going to be fine. For those of you who are concerned about it, it's an old individual, looking at the state of its teeth and its ears. You can see how things have started to relax a little bit. The rest of the clan is still dotted about in front of us. There's one to the front left. There's one off to the right as well, coming through. All carrying and sporting a couple of injuries. And the sub-adults are making their way back towards this individual. The adult aggressors, from what I can see, have actually moved off slightly. That was incredibly intense to witness. Nature at its absolutely most savage. She's got a considerable limp, and I think it is a female from what I can tell of the size. It might be a large male. It's really hard to tell. Her foot's injured. Jenny, with all of those hyenas surrounding us, were we in danger? No, I don't think so at any point. I tried to move the car because I was most concerned about the impact that we were having on the outcome of it. That hyena had sought refuge beneath us, but it actually, in a turn, trapped itself underneath. Is this hyena going to start another one? No. You can see how fearful the injured and attacked hyena is. Jenny, I don't think we were in any danger. No, don't come back under the car. Come on. Don't do that. Right, you can see there how nervous it is. But at the same time, when animals are in that sort of frame of mind and state of mind where fear and aggression are dominant, it was not a risk I was willing to take. In case that one of the hyenas tried to jump out of the way, I don't think they would ever intentionally attack us. It's almost definitely a female. She's got nipples. You can see the limp. Her back left leg is quite seriously sore, but I don't think broken. And the only reason I moved is because I felt I had to. I felt like we'd trapped that hyena as well, or it had trapped itself. Paul, I don't know. Well, first of all, I think that it knows instinctively that running away now could trigger a chase response from the rest of these hyena. With the injuries that it has, starting to run now, and it could run, even though that left leg is seriously injured, it could still run. I've seen hyenas hop through on 3 legs, no problem. I think it's afraid to run. And we don't know exactly what happened here. All that attracted us was the noise of the goings-on. But I don't know why or what happened. I don't know if it's part of this clan or not, or if it was an intruder. I don't think so, though. There's a level of familiarity between them. It's subadult ignored. I think that was probably one of the most intense sightings I've had at Wild Earth. And James Richard, you were wondering if the hyenas' clans will ever try to force out the very old, just because this hyena looks so old. Look, it's going straight back towards the den site, or at least towards the center of the clan's territory. This is not a foreign hyena, this is part of the clan. James, not as far as I know. I don't think they force out their old. I have seen ancient hyena living around den sites and at the clan, even though they're no longer breeding. I don't know. I can only offer you guesses as to what's happened here. Hyenas are predators. That is what they are. That is in their nature. And they're very intelligent creatures with a complex social system. I'm not following the injured hyena. I don't want to cause any disruption to it. And I want it to be able to have its senses on full alert. That is definitely one of the aggressors walking behind there. Stocky, big female. And the least injured of the group in terms of the adults. My guess, if I had to guess, and it is a guess, my guess would be an internal clan conflict, a subordinate stepping out of line. We've spoken before about the possibilities of coups within the hyena social structure itself. And something may have happened with that subordinate female that irritated the larger, higher-ranking females. And once they started to attack, it became a savage equivalent to a hunt, because the minute she started to squeal in pain, it triggers that hunting instinct within them, would be my guess. I would say almost certainly an internal conflict very similar to the one that you witnessed with Scott, that we also suspected was a clan member. Janet, we're watching all of these hyenas slowly make their way back down along Mvubu Road. And Janet wanted to know how close we are. Janet, we are probably less than 300 meters away from the den. The den site sits halfway along Mvubu Road, if you're familiar with our geography. And we're currently sitting at Buffelshoek Cut Line, which is very close to the border from what we can tell of this clan's territory. Wow. That was the last of them. Very intense and very difficult to witness, and also a very difficult position to be in when a hyena seeks refuge beneath the back wheel of your car, beneath the back wheel of your vehicle. Very tricky situation to know how to handle. But I think you'll all agree with me that trying to minimize the impact as well as to try not to trap the hyena itself by the presence of our vehicle was the correct decision. Safari Dean, I agree. I mean, the sub-adults, Safari Dean says that he finds it interesting how they get the sub-adults to keep watch. I agree with you completely. It is fascinating. I don't know how much of it is keeping watch and how much of it is curiosity. Those sub-adults have a natural curiosity. They seem to have been involved in all of these skirmishes that all two of these skirmishes that we've witnessed. Now, obviously, I'm not following this hyena group into this thick drainage line. First of all, because of the impact on the environment, but also because of the impact that we're going to have on the way that they're interacting. That was phenomenally intense. The presence of the sub-adults, my guess would be curiosity. They get themselves involved. How they fit into the ranking system is a mystery to me. There's the rest of them. Stop here. Give them plenty of space. I can see that injured hyena. They're all now interacting peacefully, wallowing in the water, in the mud puddles to cool down after all the action. The injured hyena is at the back there. And Paul, I guess we have our answer as to why she didn't run away. She or he, but I'm fairly certain it's a she. She's part of the clan. And whatever scary stuff lies within the clan dynamics itself, the biggest world outside of it is, I guess, even scarier for her. Romy, I have no idea as to whether or not it could be a former matriarch. She's big, she's old, it could be, or she could be an older subordinate that has spent her life aging within the clan as a constant low-ranking female, constantly bullied. The fight didn't start at the den. The fight started almost essentially where we picked up on them. And I haven't seen... Sorry, excuse me. I haven't seen her at the den site, at least this morning. She might be a female. Screenshots, please, now quickly of her left side. Please send them through to me for those of you who were watching, obviously with disclaimers for sensitive viewers who might be disturbed by what they might see. And doing what is now very common behavior for spotted hyenas, which is to wallow in mud, and they very frequently do it when they're injured. And she's lying now with this sub-adult who's perfectly peaceful with her. I wish I could offer you a more complete explanation as to what happened this morning. I don't know. My guess is internal clan discipline. I don't know what she did to provoke it, and I'm not sure how the sub-adult... Please screenshot this as well. Let's try and figure this out. And that sniffing around those injuries was gentle. No teeth involved. And now walking away. And Natalie, the hierarchy is definitely important to them. And discipline, order, and structure has been crucial to their evolutionary survival, and therefore is fiercely enforced. And for us, it is difficult to witness. We don't understand what's going on. We merely feel a human and emotional reaction to it. But it could be that what played out today was crucial in the future survival of the clan. I don't know. I can't really offer any explanation. It's a darker aspect to hyena behavior, but I'm strongly of the opinion that you cannot claim to love animals like these that are wild and behave the way they have for hundreds of years without accepting and acknowledging that they are just that. They are wild animals. They're not people. They have their own reasons and structures for doing things. You have to love both sides, even if you don't enjoy it. And Brian, I think that must have been one of your most intense sightings.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The sounds that were coming from behind us were absolutely intense, and you feel, from a human perspective, you feel absolutely heartbroken for the targeted hyena. And you feel a sort of massive sense of confusion. I really, really hope my mom wasn't watching, because she phoned me after the last hyena moment. That was with Scott. I hope she wasn't witnessing that. And for me, having witnessed lots of tragedies in the bush, that was still, I think, one of my most intense sightings ever. To witness something like that is incredibly, incredibly difficult to see. We only have our emotional human responses to it, and our instinctive response is to feel incredibly sorry for the targeted hyena, the hyena that is clearly on the back foot, quite literally in this case, particularly when they try and seek refuge from whatever quarter they can, which in this case, she was intelligent enough to know that we were here and we were solid, and that it would be a place that she could come and try and seek refuge from underneath our vehicle, which is incredible to me, that they understand that and they know that. She came to us to try and protect her. And unfortunately for us, that's an incredibly difficult position for us to be in, because we can't actually protect her. We can't interfere in this in any way. It's a natural progression of the way that these hyenas are interacting. And to sit and watch her now is almost equally heartbreaking. She's just watching the rest of the clan move off. And maybe it's because they have such expressive faces. Maybe it's because we have spent so much time with them that it feels so sad and so human to watch her. Ginny, I have thought about it. I think I will go back to the den site, depending on what's happening. The only thing I want to do is I will have to go around. Obviously, with her lying in the road like that, I don't want to come and disturb her, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time with her and then loop around back to the den. I don't want to push her in any... she's actually going to try and follow, I think. Shame. Oh, poor girl. Let me duck down so you can see. No, she's going to come back here. Oh, I'm sorry, girl. I don't know what you did or what happened there. Yes, Jared, we've seen it now twice, and we've seen it in their play as well. Those playful moments with the cubs are also learning experiences, and Jared's right. Hyenas go straight for the ears and for the legs. I've spoken about it when they're playing before, and it's the most sensitive and vulnerable patches on the hyena. And actually what they're going for when they go for the back legs is the genitals in these serious attacks. And the legs just happen to be in the way, which is why it's always the back legs that are damaged in the way that they are. And she's going to limp off to lick her wounds, followed by that sub-adult that was lying in the mud with her. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't know if she's the sub-adult's mother. As she limps off, you can see that little sub-adult's going to pop into view soon. Screenshots, please, if you are watching. Screenshot the sub-adult as well. Let's try and figure this out. Left side is fine. Unbelievable. Is the sub-adult following out of curiosity? Similar to what we saw with Scott, to see what happens next. Or is it following out of a deeper sense of family connection? Your guess is almost as good as mine in this particular respect. I honestly am not sure as to what that dynamic is. We'll have to go back and we'll have to check spot patterns and try and figure this out. There's another little sub-adult wandering through as well. I feel like I know that hyena. I feel as though I've seen her before. And I'll have to go back and double check and go through some of the records and see if we can figure out who she is. And then I'll update you on the sunset safari when I've had a chance to do that. Another sub-adult wandering through, but more, I think, just wandering. Maybe going to explore the other scene of the fight. Eileen, who's watching in Texas. Apparently when James first found the den site, there was a female hanging out around the hole, and James speculated that she might have very young cubs. Apparently she kept calling around the entrance to the den. I'll double check. I'll go through and I will have a look and try and figure it out. I think there's a possibility. Apparently she hadn't been seen since Corky moved her young cubs into that den site. There's a distinct possibility it is her, but why? What happened? I would love to know. But it's going to probably forever be one of those mysteries that we can only speculate about. We spend so much time with these complex creatures. And this is why, moments like this is why it is so, not just because the cubs are cute, this is why it's so worthwhile, those hours and hours we have spent at the den getting to know the clan, and for you guys to get to know the clan. It's actually essential for moments like these, because we can start to understand a little bit better what's happening. I'm going to make my way back towards the den. It was incredible. Heartbreaking and incredibly painful way. Still something intense to witness. And I think even more so for Brian, who was sitting on the back with the hyenas underneath him. Rocking the car. Sure. That was a new one for me.
Yeah.
Wow. And as much as we see out here, and I mean, between Brian and myself, Brian spent a phenomenal amount of time out on the back of the vehicle with the camera, as well as the work that he's done for Wild Earth and other areas. And I've spent hours and hours and days and months in the bush before. And you never ever become inured to the feelings that a sighting like that provokes. Particularly with all of those vocalizations. Hyenas are such incredibly vocal creatures. I'll do some research this afternoon in between drives, and I'll try and figure out exactly what's going on. And while I make my way back towards the den, which as many of our regular viewers know is a bit of a windy, circuitous route, let's pop over to Steph and see what he has to say.
And not to steal you away from the hyena for too long, but myself and Tebs just came onto this amazingly green open area after only 12 hours ago having received the first rain of the season. This was sand, literally, yesterday morning. And now we've got green, and on the green was those crowned lapwing that you opened with. And this is a pair of crowned lapwing that do live on this open area. They're insectivores. Big black and white cap. Camouflage bird once it sits down and hides its belly and its legs. It needs to be because they incubate their eggs on the ground. And they have these brown, mottled eggs that they put in a scrape. They don't build a nest, they just scrape some sand together. And you will have noticed the other presenters, James, Brent, and Scott, coming to this open area. These are quite successful parents. Quite often it takes us a few days or weeks to find their nest, but we eventually do. Always brush over the fact that these birds are so fantastically colored. That black and white crown on top of their head is there for a reason. And I'm of the opinion that it's there for other lapwing flying around. So it's as a warning that, listen, this is my patch, this is where I am, and you can see me from the top. Now, just before we send you back through to Jamie, I want to show you 255. This book that I have over here is plate 255. Or am I being very dumb? Plate 53 in actual fact. I want to see if it's the meaning of its name has anything to do with that head of hair that it has, that black and white coloration. It is called the crowned lapwing, its common name. I'll be with you in a couple of seconds. White-crowned, blacksmith. Coronatus is its specific name. So Vanellus coronatus, which means to have a crown, and that is obviously typical of this particular bird. Not that exciting, other than you have this big black and white. Alrighty, you going back to Jamie?
We're back with these two hyenas. I was on my way to the den when they dashed past us. Popped out exactly where I expected to, at the water. Tails up, full of aggression. Their body language just says aggression. You can see it in them. They've come to sniff around where that hyena was. Let's see if they go right or left. She went right. Okay, they're going straight up the road. Let's try and stay with them. Again, these are the two main aggressors from earlier, as far as I can tell. That one walking behind with its tail in the air when I first mentioned it. She was the female that came in and everybody was subservient to. As soon as she walked into that den site, everybody, the cubs, everything was on high alert. And I wonder that she's not the matriarch. I'm throwing, hazarding possibilities out to us. I don't know what's going on. Just the attitude that all of the hyenas adopted around her. Luckily she's not going in the direction of the injured hyena, which I'm actually quite glad about. She's come back to the scene of the fight. What is going on? Look at them sniffing like that. Stop here. Now, apparently there's a hyena sniffing at the Djuma Dam. These guys have returned to the scene of that fight, and in fact right to where they cornered that hyena underneath our tire. Look at that. Is that Corky? Can't be. Looks like her though. No, it's not. Sorry. It's not her. Another one of the sub-adults has just arrived. Quite possibly that sub-adult that followed the injured hyena. That individual on the left with its tail in the air, she is the one I'm talking about with those dense spot patterns. She's a dark hyena in color, and she is the main aggressor. She started, well, I think she started all of this. You can see it in her attitude. They've returned where they cornered that hyena in the drainage line as well, sniffing all around. Why, I wonder? What purpose does that serve? What is she trying to establish? And that tail up, curled over her back like that, is a very clear sign of hyena excitement or aggression. And it's also something you see when they go on the hunt. Let's screenshot her as well, please. Take as many screenshots as you can and send them through to me, because there is something fascinating happening in this clan. Thank you, everybody, to those of you sending them through. I can tell I'm going to be sitting for hours looking at spot patterns today. Whoopsie. Thought I wasn't in low range, my bad, sorry. Give them as much space as I can as we watch what they're doing, just so that we don't impact on whatever's playing out here. I don't know. This is Buffalo's Hook, by the way. We're right on the boundary. And keep an eye on the dam camera today and see if that injured hyena wanders through. She went off in the opposite direction, though. I think she's going to go into Buffalo's Hook. Luckily, they seem to be tracking northwest. She went northeast. But I don't know. It's almost like they're looking for her. Why, though? Surely it's done? Maybe not. This is probably a very common scene, what is happening here. It's probably something that's been maybe not witnessed as often as we think, but it's something that has happened regularly. Diana, I agree. Actually, Brian and I just had that conversation where I said I don't think they were going to kill her. And Diana said they could easily have caused more damage. Who are you two? It is Corky. It's definitely Corky. And that confirms that Corky is a very high-ranking individual, which is what we've always suspected. And you, little one? You're just along for the ride, I think. Wow. I'm starting to unravel slowly but surely. I think that's June that walked past us there. We always suspected that June was, if not the daughter of the matriarch or the son of the matriarch, definitely a high-ranking hyena. Back to where they cornered that hyena under our tire. Exactly. Came and had a sniff. Wow. Intensely interesting. And I wonder about that stocky individual and who she is. Because she is clearly, and even Corky was submissive to her. And when she first arrived at the den site, and this is why our observation at the den sites is so crucial. At the den site, Corky's twins came straight out to greet her in a very submissive fashion. And she was very gentle with them. She was sniffing them and licking them. Is she a grandmother? Or is she Corky's older daughter? She looks younger than Corky to me, but she's huge. She's bulky.